There we go. All right, we are now recording. And before we kick off here with the slides that we want to share and the information we want to share, again, we want to thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. We want to touch on a number of things. I'll be going through an agenda here in a moment. But Jim, I'm wondering if you wanted to say a few words to kick us off.
Yeah, again, and I just want to echo your sentiment, Luke, that happy we were able to get back together. I'm happy to see everybody is safely into, finishing out the month and, getting through what has got to be the most challenging period of time that I think I've experienced. And, I know we've got a lot of content to cover today, so I'm not going to get too sentimental, but just very excited about moving forward and really getting something done in our great community. So Luke, with that, let's get into the content.
Great. Thank you, Jim. And again, I tend to gloss over the fact that we normally have such great returning membership to this meeting. There might be folks that are joining us for the first time, so didn't mean to skip the introductions there. Of course, that was Deputy Commissioner Jim Harbin kicking us off. I'm Luke Mish, planner in the Southeast region, specifically focused on Englewood as it relates to Invest Southwest. So as noted, we're here at our fourth roundtable. Again, we have a pretty full agenda today. We have some updates from some of our sister agencies and others in City Hall who want to provide the roundtable with additional information on some items we've discussed in the past and some programs that we want to make sure folks are aware of. At the same time, we want to take some time to discuss the July roundtable, what we heard. We recognize that there were definitely a lot of thoughts that came out of that meeting, and we want to make sure that we reflect to you all that we've definitely been thinking about that, and we have some strategies for moving forward in a way that we think works well based on what we heard in July. We want to provide an update on the Englewood Square RFP, and then we'll have time for open discussion. So because we do have so much to go through, we really would ask that we try to hold discussion until that agenda item, number 7 there, and we have planned for a considerable amount of time for that open discussion. So we just want to make sure we get through the information. As you all know, sometimes information might show up on a later slide, so we can cover it in the presentation and then come back and make sure we discuss thoroughly and can obviously flip back and forth with any of the material. So by way of introduction, we wanted to start with an understanding of Invest Southwest. And just a refresher again of why it is we're here. To be sure, DPD and the city more broadly are working on many other initiatives besides Invest Southwest. But Invest Southwest is the impetus for these roundtables, and it's therefore been our focus in terms of agenda items. And so we just want to make sure that folks are aware of exactly what Invest Southwest is aiming to do. So as we've covered before, the initiative exists to marshal the resources of multiple city departments as well as community organizations and community partners towards the revitalization of 12 corridors in 10 community areas in the south and west sides. The driver of Invest Southwest is economic development, but the way that we get there takes many forms. It involves improvements to the public realm. It involves improvements to transportation and mobility. It involves retail, whether that be the development of new retail and services or programs to help support existing retail and services. And in general, it's aimed at quality of life amenities. So these corridors were identified by DPD through a series of analyses that showed that they were both in need of revitalization due to historic disinvestment, but also potential catalysts for not only the rest of the community areas that surround them, but catalysts for other areas outside of that as well. And so that's to say that these 12 corridors are, we see a first step in Invest Southwest. And you know, the potential for additional corridors after this this first stage is definitely on the table. Those corridors may occur in some of these same community areas. They may be elsewhere. So this is, again, it's a starting point. It's not to say that this is the end all be all for the focus of Invest Southwest, but it is the initial focus. With that in mind, of course, what we're here for today is the Roundtable. The Roundtable is, of course, a monthly touch point with you all as it relates to Invest Southwest. And in this case, specifically, we're looking at the 63rd and Halsted corridor. Now, that doesn't mean, again, that that's the only thing that we'll be discussing. And by all means, if there are things that we should be aware of, we look to you all to bring those to our attention. And if there are things outside of Invest Southwest, as there are today, that we want to share with you, we will continue to do that. The roundtables are intended to be two-way communication points. So it is our venue to share information with you all and get your feedback on that information, but it's also the forum by which, you know, we want to hear from you, again, either responding and collaborating with us on the items that we might, that DPD might be sharing or our sister agencies might be sharing, or on items that you might come to the table with that interest you and you want us to make sure we take a closer look at. So that's really the goal. And to keep in mind that it's part of a suite of strategies. It's not the only way that we at DPD intend to engage not only with you all, but with the broader community. So we know that there are award-specific engagement opportunities. Some have already been scheduled. Some are in the process of being scheduled. We look forward to that as it's appropriate. We know that more public meetings and webinars may be appropriate, and that digital communication is going to be key. And then finally, we've recently had a great experience with in-person socially distant meetings. And so we think we have a model for that moving forward when that's appropriate. Again, these digital ones are kind of a blessing and a curse. We can get a lot more involvement. It's a lot easier for folks to join a Zoom sometimes than to show up to a location. But we also know that some folks don't have access to those digital tools. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at that as well. And I actually just realized that I don't even have my video on, so apologies for that. I'm going to change that. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. So first on our agenda today, again, keeping in mind that we focus on Invest Southwest, we do want to take some time to provide an update on the Corridor Manager RFP process. And so I believe Caroline Rendon from LISC is on the call and can share a little bit of detail about that process. Caroline, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Luke. Hi, everybody. We met last month, and I will say there hasn't been a ton of change in the Corridor Manager process since then. What we did do, as I think we reported in the last roundtable, is extend the application period for an additional 2 weeks to make sure that all the qualified applicants were able to submit all of their materials. So we did receive one additional application for this corridor. We had 2 in the prior round. We received an additional one that actually replaced one of the previous ones. So there's still 2 total for this area. And so we'll be spending the next week or 2 having kind of one-on-ones with some stakeholders in the area and kind of talking through the pros and cons of those applicants, and hope to make a final decision by the end of the month. So that's the quick update. There's really not a ton of brand new information, but I'll put information into the chat and would be happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Caroline. Yeah, so as noted, you know, this is something we want to make sure we're bringing up to you all. And again, a quick recap on the Corridor Manager position, which is that as that person's brought on board, they, or person or entity, I should say, they will really be the ones facilitating these roundtables moving forward. And DPD will be involved in a support role for that. And so I think that that's a critical item to understand. Sorry, I just want to pull up the chat so I have it in front of me. Okay. Okay, great. Now we want to switch gears a little bit. Again, Invest Southwest is our focus, but it's not the only focus. I now want to turn it over to Lauren Burdett from the mayor's office, who has information about the Chicago Connected program that she'd like to share. And we want to make sure we get this information out to you all, especially as CPS starts returning to digital schooling. So Lauren, are you on the call?
Yep, thanks, Luke. Hi, everybody. My name is Lauren Burdett. I work in Office of Equity and Racial Justice with Candace Moore. And one of the sort of many, you can go to the next slide, Luke, sorry. One of the sort of many inequities of our city that COVID has laid bare that did exist before, obviously, was the digital divide. And so I've been part of a public-private partnership between CPS, philanthropic organizations, the city of Chicago, and United Way and Kids First Chicago to help figure out how to address that inequity related to internet access. So 1 in 5 kids in Chicago lack internet access, according to a recent report. But when you start to dig down, like many of the other issues in our city, those numbers can rise by neighborhood. So in West Englewood, for instance, that goes to nearly 1 in 2 households, nearly 1 in 3 in Austin and Humboldt Park. So we see internet access as a crucial racial equity issue, and that's why we are really excited to talk about Chicago Connected. So next slide. And you can go to the next one. This report I can also link to you all if you're interested. It came out in April, and it shows the sort of breakdowns by neighborhoods of eligible areas that have the least connected households. So next slide. What is Chicago Connected? It is basically it's an internet subsidy program. So we are providing internet for free to eligible CPS households. And there's money, fortunately, for 60,000 households, which equates to about 100,000 students. This is internet in your home is our sort of gold standard. It's more reliable and consistent, and it's also often able to connect more than just one kid at a time. You can have multiple people when you have a wired connection like that. CPS has determined eligibility of families based on 6 equity factors. Some are based on economic circumstances of the household, and some are based on the actual students themselves. That information is listed on this slide and also on the website that I'll put in the chat. If you go to the next slide. I want to give most time for questions here. We are signing folks up now. So like if you call today, if you're eligible, you'll likely get Comcast or RCN installed within 5 to 10 business days. So you can, and the other exciting thing is that you can figure out if you're eligible online directly now. CPS's website, as of yesterday, has a lookup tool, so you can use the student ID number, I think is what it's called, to check and see if your student is eligible, and then you can just call directly. It is based on address, so if you have not updated your family's address in the CPS system, they'll ask you to do that. But otherwise, we're good to go. Any questions? I put the link to the website in there. I know that was super fast. I could talk about this for hours. I've learned a lot about the internet recently.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, I encouraged some Englewood-based organizations to apply to be service providers in this area. One organization that I'm on the board of, Urban Tech Academy, has been working to provide refurbished computers and hotspots on their own to families in the Englewood community, but they were unable to get any positive response from the opportunity to participate as a provider to go out and to help homes get connected and get equipment and get up and running in our community. Is there some way to widen the pool of people who provide technical assistance to families in our community that come from our community so that they could be part of a digital solution for families in need, and especially those that have worked in schools in our community for a long period of time? They should be able to be supported in their work to help people get online.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I think I don't know who's speaking. There's a lot of.
This is Bruce Montgomery. This is Bruce Montgomery speaking. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm happy to both connect you with the folks at CPS who do a lot of that tech support work and see if there's opportunities for additional partnerships. We also are partnering with community-based organizations in neighborhoods across the city that have the highest numbers of disconnected families. And I think that might be another really awesome place for you to get connected, because once we have families signed up, the sort of next space, as all of you know, and all of us have realized as we're doing remote work opportunities, is that there's a lot more to the internet than just being connected. So we also are providing digital literacy support services for families, mostly the adults, but sometimes the kids too. So that also seems like a place that you all could be really helpful in partnering with those nonprofit organizations.
Well, I contacted Marcus Miller in the mayor's office at the beginning of COVID. I've talked to Jim Harbin about this issue, and many of us recognized that digital connectivity was going to be critical for our communities in every way possible, from unemployment to telehealth and now to education. But oftentimes when it doesn't seem like those in our community that do this work get a chance to be involved in these initiatives, it seems a lot of top-down activity, both at Chicago Public Schools and other places. So I just want to make the statement that we have a digital competency in our community, but we like to be part of the solution as well, so that especially when it comes time to going in homes and nonprofit organizations to help folks get connected, that they see people they know from their community that have been involved in these arenas doing some of this work and also being compensated for their skill and commitment to our neighborhood.
Totally. That's exactly, you could not have given a better pitch if you were, the CBO itself. So we're super excited to work with you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. Any other questions for Lauren on Chicago Connected? Okay. Well, I know Lauren won't be able to stay with us for the whole meeting, so if folks do have additional questions towards the end, we'll be sure to pass those along. And again, you see here the phone number to call. The website is in the chat, but please let us know if there are any questions, and we'll be sure to connect you with Lauren and then on to whoever else might have those answers. So Lauren, thank you again.
Sure. Thank you.
Great. One more update from a sister agency here. I think Aaron Harkey, Deputy Commissioner at DCASE, is on the line to give us a quick update of the public art programs happening in Englewood. Aaron, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Luke. Really nice to be here. Happy. Good afternoon, everybody. Just really two quick updates about sort of artist selection processes in the works for the two projects that we have going in Englewood. The first is the Halstead Gate mural. The project is progressing. We've gone through the initial phases of artist selection, and thank you very much to Tina Hammond and artists Dorian Sylvain and Joyce Owens, who participated in that process with us. Our selection panel has identified 4 artist team finalists: Englewood Arts Collective, Damon Reed, Bernard Williams, and Sean Michael Warren, who are all living in or have longstanding connections to Englewood. We're going to be hosting a sort of virtual forum with these artists on Tuesday, August 25th at 1 p.m. This is an opportunity for the artists to share a little bit more about their work, but most importantly, solicit input, ideas, and inspiration from all of you as they develop their proposals for that location at 5800 South Halstead. We're going to be sharing the Zoom invitation with all of you after the call, and so if you are free, please join us. This is a great way to provide input into the development of public art in your neighborhood. We're also progressing with our Artist in Residence program in Englewood. We're really excited. We had a meeting just earlier this week with 4 wonderful community partners from Englewood that will be helping DPD and DK staff determine who the artist in residence for Englewood will be. These panelists represent, I think, the creative and cultural community of Englewood well, so I think they will certainly represent your interests. They're longstanding residents and artists in your community. And again, they'll be working with us over the next several weeks to review artist applications, interview artists, and select the artist in residence for Englewood. And you will be engaged throughout that process as well, so we'll keep you updated as that gets going. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you, Erin. Any questions on the public art work that's ongoing from anyone?
I'm sorry, Luke, was that a question for me? You cut in and out.
No, sorry. Oh, I didn't realize I was the one cutting in and out. No, I was asking the group if there were any questions for you or for DKs, but I haven't heard any. So, okay. Let me, if my sound is going, give me 1 minute here and I will. Okay, I'm hoping that avoids any other sound cutting and going. So thank you again, Erin. And again, if there are questions towards the end, happy to take those and pass those along as needed. So with that, we want to just jump into kind of a summary of what we heard in July. We know that, we've been moving pretty aggressively with the Invest Southwest initiative, and again, everything that we've been doing thus far on the Invest Southwest front have been what I'll call initial steps. So the RFP that we talked about last time, we'll talk about that a little bit more today, but those are really first steps to getting things done, first steps to starting a process of which this roundtable and the community more broadly will be an important element. So with that said, we know that we heard, pretty loud and clear at the last meeting that there were some concerns with the process as it was laid out, some concerns with communication that could have been clearer from us at DPD, and some concerns about kind of the focus that's being kind of shown for Invest Southwest and these roundtables more broadly. So the three items that we really thought kind of rose to the top of concerns from last time is that the community and the roundtable specifically need to be true partners in planning, right? That this is a collaborative effort and not a one-way street. And by all means, that is exactly what we have had in mind. And to the extent that that has not been communicated clearly or implemented clearly, we certainly, we take that on, and we want to do better moving forward on that. And I have we'll have additional information here about how we might do that. Number two, we know that economic development is not the only need in the community within Englewood. And so the roundtable itself can be an opportunity for those broader discussions, which then may spin out to their own engagement or their own programs. And so we can talk about that in a little bit here as well. And then finally, given the location of the 63rd and Halsted corridor, our focus has been Englewood more kind of concretely. And we heard loud and clear, don't forget about West Englewood. Don't forget about things that are off corridor. And we absolutely appreciate that. Again, as noted earlier, Invest Southwest has a pretty clear geographic focus, but A, the Invest Southwest initiative extends beyond the corridor to the entire identified community area, and B, Invest Southwest is not the only thing that DPD is working on, and certainly not the only thing we want to hear about and engage you with during these calls. So to go to that number one point, collaborative engagement, some concrete strategies that we think came out of the last call that we've discussed, making sure we have advance notice of the agendas. As you can imagine, we're often working up until the last minute to pull together material as we coordinate across agencies and make sure that we get the latest information out to you all. But having said that, we want to do our best to ensure that you all have the agenda ahead of time, so that you can come prepared to speak to those items better. Presentation materials, we work to share those afterwards. I know that there have been requests to have those ahead of time. I think when possible, we can definitely look to do that. But again, we always want to make sure that we're sharing the most up-to-date information. And rather than have a pre-meeting version and a post-meeting version floating around out there, it's often best for us to share that afterwards. But we hope the agenda might spur some thinking ahead of time. As noted earlier, the roundtables are not our only method of engagement, and so additional small group and ward-specific sessions are certainly on the table. We've already held one of those, and I think we're holding another in due time. So we look forward to that, and as that becomes appropriate for specific ideas, we'll definitely be looking to do that. And at the same time, on the other end of the spectrum, there may be opportunities for larger public meetings. We know that we heard last time, often it's more than just the folks on this roundtable that need to know about certain projects and certain initiatives. And we agree with that. We think that the goal of the roundtables is to have that focused discussion with a broad representation of the community. But necessarily that doesn't include everyone. And so we want to make sure that when appropriate, we're having those larger public sessions. And so we'll continue to think through that. And then finally, this can apply really to either of the above two, probably at this time more easily to the small group sessions, would be a socially distanced in-person approach. Again, we don't see that being a solution for the roundtable itself moving forward, but as appropriate for other discussions that spin off of the roundtable, we do see that as a potential way forward. We've already had a successful version of that. We know what that model can look like. And so we look forward to taking that on as it's appropriate, again, to make sure that we're reaching everyone who may not have access to digital technologies. Our second point, as we alluded to, which came out of last time, is that the focus for the community is not just economic development. And the last thing we want to do is harp on a topic at this roundtable that isn't addressing other needs in the community. At the same time, it is the focus of Invest Southwest and the focus of these roundtables. So we want to strike that balance between making sure that we are communicating in a two-way fashion about the economic development programs and projects that are coming out of Invest Southwest, but also that we give some time at these roundtables for folks to share with us non-Invest Southwest things, and again, for us to bring in our partners to have to share information about things that are outside really the Invest Southwest boundaries. So how do we do that? Well, continue to invite other departments and agencies to present on other topics. We heard from a few folks today, and we will continue to do that as appropriate. There are other projects that DPD itself is working on, the Englewood Trail being one of them. At this point, there's not been much change to the trail itself, but we know that the viaduct has been improved in anticipation of the DCASE public artwork. And just northwest of the viaduct is the Gateway Community Garden work, which is ongoing. And so those are the kinds of things that we definitely want to, as that starts to take more shape, we can have the right folks here at the roundtable to give more information about projects like that are happening outside of the kind of narrow focus of economic development. And then again, we're here to discuss other projects. The roundtable is not the only time that we're available. And so it's a great time for us all to be together. It's a great time for all of us to chime in and hear everyone's thoughts. But we want to make sure that we are accessible, and I'll make sure again to put my contact information in the chat so that if there are things that are coming up, projects you're interested in, things you've heard about and want to know more about, we're definitely always accessible for those things. And then finally, what we heard last time is that we need to think beyond the corridor. So not just in terms of beyond economic development, but geographically beyond 63rd and Halsted. And so we're doing that. We're actively doing that. And we want to communicate that and make sure we share with you where those kinds of plans and ideas are headed, and want to collaborate with you all on where the focus might be outside of the corridor. So we've heard, support for existing homeowners is needed, addressing vacant parcels and buildings. We've heard about some specific sites that folks are looking at. We know that there are other corridors, even within Englewood, that may benefit from a focused study or a focused understanding of retail and economic development. Again, open space, things like the Englewood Trail, and supporting community-driven projects. And that's something that we haven't talked a lot about at the Roundtable, but I know we've been working in partnership with some of you all on projects that you're working on, things that you've started, things that you've secured funding for that need either some support from the city, some coordination from us. And so that's absolutely part of what we're trying to do here. And so if and when appropriate, the Roundtable is the time to bring that up. And again, we're always available outside of the Roundtable as well. And finally, I'll just note that at the moment, we've been focused on the DPD side so much on the Southwest as it gets up and running. Again, to remember that this is really the beginning of what we see as a long-term initiative for the city. And so part of that startup phase is bringing aboard the Invest Southwest corridor manager. And so the corridor manager will be available soon to kind of take over the coordination of these roundtables, which in turn will help allow us some additional opportunities at DPD to look at some off-corridor projects as well. So we wanted to touch on that, and I think when we get to the open discussion section, we'd love to hear more about if there's anything we've missed, if there's specific strategies to the things we've mentioned that we haven't captured here. So if there are any kind of responses to that, please just hold for one moment and let us know during the open discussion. We do want to hear more about what we heard in July and how we move forward from that. But before we get to that, we did want to touch on the Englewood Square Phase 2 RFP process. We had a really great session with Alderman Coleman and her 16th Ward Community Development Task Force. And we were hoping Alderman Coleman would be able to actually jump in and say a few words about that process and about her experience with the RFP. Alderman, are you on the line?
I am.
Hi, Alderman. How are you?
Great, Luke.
Thank you. I just wanted to pause here for a moment before we jump into this. We know last time there were a lot of comments and concerns about the RFP and the process, and we want to step through with you all where we are in that process and how we've come to that point. But Alderman, I wanted to give you a chance to maybe speak to the process that has, as you've seen it unfold, and kind of your vision for the 63rd and Halstead corridor and the Englewood Square Phase 2 site.
Thank you. First, let me just thank the 16th Ward Development Task Force that were all able to meet at such a short notice as an emergency meeting, because after our July meeting and the dismay and disappointment that the group shared, I knew that there needed to be a focus meeting with a focus agenda regarding Phase 2 of the corridor, so we can change that narrative. So let me thank those on this line. I think there were about 20 participants at the meeting, and also DPD Commissioner Cox and you, Luke, and Jim, and the entire team. I think we had a very intentional agenda. A report from the group is that we were in support of the RFP because of the presentation for the CDC, and there had to be some community support and some community engagement. So I think you all did a fantastic job. Our task force, just like everyone on this call, will be holding you all accountable as those sentiments. And I just want to make sure that we understand we are holding those accountable. We do not want another public housing development. We want mixed use. We want quality businesses. I'm going to reiterate, we want quality high quality, affordable business and opportunities for minorities to not only develop this phase 2, to build it, and we want post-construction opportunities, entrepreneurs, we want businesses. And I think that the collective, those, I see 38 participants, 36 participants now, and more to come, to really be effective and intentional about phase 2 in the 16th ward for our entire Englewood community.
Great. Thank you, Alderman. And yes, thank you again to you and the 16th Ward Task Force, many of whom are on this call and many of whom have been on these roundtables. And so we were excited to have the opportunity to speak with you all. And duly noted, I think that the notes that you have about holding the RFP and DPD accountable to those desires, that's the point of that engagement, is to understand what those desires are, make sure that the RFP captures those, and then make sure that as the process unfolds, we continue to hold ourselves and respondents accountable. So with that said, we wanted to make sure we shared with the broader group a refresher of where we are with the RFP, what the RFP is, and what exactly it is that the 16th Ward Development Task Force, Community Development Task Force, has looked at and understood as we move forward. So a refresher here at the very beginning: what are the Invest Southwest RFPs? We tend to use again, we use our terminology, we use our alphabet soup sometimes, forgetting that some of these concepts aren't everyday concepts for all of us. So an RFP is simply a request for proposals. It is a tool that we use to market and advertise city-owned property for future development. And so that's what these are. They are the first step in a redevelopment process. They simply say, there is city-owned land available, and this is what we think could be there. And then we take that on as responses, and we vet responses against what's in the RFP. Now, a traditional RFP tends to be very basic. It lays out what the basics of the property, the appraisal price, environmental conditions, things like that, and leaves it at that. And it can often turn into a developer-driven process. That's not what we want with Invest Southwest. And so what we're trying to do is start including neighborhood vision and goals in the RFP. Now, having said that, it's not the final list of potential program. It's not the final illustration of urban design. It is one potential solution and a menu of options that have come from the community. And we're still getting information from you all that we are incorporating into the RFP. We got some additional information today on, previous potential uses for the firehouse that you all have discussed. Now, what we'll say is that when respondents come together to figure out what their proposal is, that starts adding additional detail. And as we'll see in a moment, that provides additional opportunities for discussion with you all. So the RFPs provide that vision and goal. They start suggesting a menu of uses. They start illustrating what a potential future urban design could be for the site. And most importantly, all of that allows us at DPD, at the city, to understand what the financial feasibility is of these proposals before the RFP hits the street. In a traditional RFP, you say, here's the land that's available, and you just wait until the development community comes back to you and says, I'd like to build X, Y, Z, and I need this much city subsidy to make it happen. So we didn't want to be caught flat-footed, and the Invest Southwest RFPs allow us to start thinking about how the uses that are discussed in these sessions can hit the ground and how much funding potentially might be needed, just to make sure that we're shaping things correctly. And as we'll see with Englewood, that actually was very crucial to understanding the geographic extent of the RFP. And so we'll talk about that in a moment. Importantly, the RFP is not a plan. It's not the final vision for that site. What it is I keep using the word menu. It is a series of potential uses. In the firehouse, for example, we've heard of a number of different uses that folks might want to see in the firehouse. We've heard about a restaurant and a banquet hall. We've heard about flexible community space. We've heard about a business incubator. We've heard about expanding to an outdoor market. We've also heard about a cultural hub and a potential historic, neighborhood history museum. There are so many uses, and it really takes somebody thinking through the architecture of that, the design of it, but also the financials of it for us to understand which of those might be the most attractive. And it's possible that somebody could propose building a companion building to the firehouse that might provide additional space for some of those programs. So what we want to do in the RFPs is lay out this menu so developers know what kinds of things we're expecting here and what we're not expecting. And we're not expecting, and we won't accept, another Starbucks or, something like that to be in this setting. We want to make sure that we're giving an idea of what the community is expecting, knowing that there's additional time in the process. And that's kind of the most important point about these Invest Southwest RFPs. The release of the RFP is really the very, very first step. And so the engagement we've done to date, which has included not only discussions with the 16th Ward Community Development Task Force, but our own discussions at this roundtable in June, the late June workshop that so many of you participated in, and the one-on-one discussions we've had with some of you over the last couple of months. So all of that is really just step number one. That gets the request for proposals out the door. It signals to the development community that this land is available. And I'll get to in a moment. When I say the development community, I'm painting that with a pretty broad brush. We're not solely talking about developers, and we'll see that in a moment. But that's the first step. As this process continues over the next 3 months, we'll have, again, our standard roundtables here every month, in addition to potentially other discussion, other engagement opportunities. And at each of those checkpoints, we have the opportunity to come back and gain additional detail. We know that there are some thoughts you all have put into these sites in the past. We can continue to add that detail even after the RFP is released, because after 3 months, then we actually evaluate the responses that have come back. So during the 3 months when teams are developing their proposals, we can continue to share information with them and give updates about uses or that are wanted or not wanted. And then during the evaluation period, DPD works to shortlist those developers so that it's folks that are meeting the minimum requirements. But then we bring those developers back to you all to present their proposals. And we want to hear from you all what's good, what's not good. And it won't be a matter of, well, pick the best of this bunch, and if none of them are good, so be it. That's definitely not our approach come November and December. Instead, what we'll be doing is using your feedback to shape the negotiations with one or more of those developers, or those teams, I should say. We may have the opportunity to engage more than one, and we certainly have the opportunity to shape what they are proposing beyond what they put in their application. And so as that developer is selected in the beginning of 2021, we then launch into a 9-month process of negotiating with them. And again, we have our monthly roundtables throughout that 9-month process. And we can continue to bring revised information back. We can continue to gain detail from you all and bring that back to that team. So this, again, is really the start of a process. And I do want to highlight, as Alderman Coleman kind of alluded to, this is about building, local community wealth and development capacity. The RFP selection criteria themselves, what we have baked into the selection criteria is targeting teams from Englewood who reflect and are from the community. And so when we say the development community, we are encouraging teams that might be composed of developers and community groups in partnership. And we already know many of you are involved in your own ground up development. And so we encourage you all on this call. We encourage folks in your network to get involved with folks who may be more comfortable with physical development, but certainly don't have quite the, we want to make sure the teams are well balanced. And so that's definitely part of this. To make that happen, we are currently engaging with two groups, the Chicago Emerging Minority Developer Initiative and the Yield Network. These are groups of up-and-coming developers, minority developers, developers of color, who are, partnering with either firms or individuals who have substantial experience and can kind of shepherd them through the process of what it means to be a developer, a ground-up developer. And so these are two groups that we are targeting this RFP towards. It's not exclusively, but these are the kinds of folks that we are really aiming this development opportunity towards. These images here are actually three developers in Detroit who are from Detroit and came up out of the same kind of process that Commissioner Cox had led in his days in Detroit, where an RFP was released, a concerted effort was made to ensure that the folks developing those projects were coming from the communities in which the RFP was released. And these are three of those developers that came from that process. Several of them had some experience with development, maybe rehab, maybe single family home, but this was really, the RFP in Detroit at that time was their opportunity to get involved in a larger development, and it really kickstarted their entire businesses. And so these three developers have each broken off and started their own development firms based on that RFP. And so that's exactly the kind of holistic transformation we're looking to with the RFPs. It's not just about the physical transformation on site, but it's about building that development capacity within the community. So our next steps on this front are releasing 3 RFPs. These are for 3 different sites across 3 different corridors. As we all know, we have 12 total corridors. The vision for the RFPs is to identify those opportunity sites and release 1 RFP per corridor every quarter. And so Englewood, Austin, and Auburn Gresham have each gone through this same vetting process. They have had, the teams that we've been engaged with have helped craft a vision with the community, with those roundtables. And so these are the 3 RFPs that are slated to be released here at the end of the month, at the end of August, with 3 additional RFPs coming out in November across 3 other corridors, yet to be determined, 3 additional in February, and 3 additional in May, so that within a year, all 12 corridors have an RFP on the street. And by 2022, again, two years from now, 2022, we would anticipate construction across all of these sites. So, we're excited about this first step, but again, it is a first step where we have the better part of a year to really continue to shape what the development is at Englewood Square Phase 2. So shortlisted developers will present back on the Englewood project in November and December, and we really, we're going to craft a good session for that to make sure we get a lot of good feedback from you all. The winning developer will be selected in early 2021, and we anticipate groundbreaking as early as fall 2021. It could be a little later than that, but that's kind of what we're planning on here. And again, this is that process across all of the corridors. So you can see that the release of the RFP isn't actually even on these graphics. The release of the RFP allows the responses to be developed over 3 months, the evaluation to occur over a month and a half, 9 months of negotiation and legislative processes, and then breaking ground, and then construction taking anywhere from, let's say 15 months to 2 years for these projects. So that is the overall vision for the RFPs. And so that's what we're aiming to do, is release the Englewood RFP next week as that first step that takes into account all of the things that have been shared to this point. And again, we can continue to share information with development teams as new information comes up from you all, as we continue to get ideas that may not have been captured to date. And when those proposals come back, which now have been shaped by what's in the RFP, there's additional time to continue to respond to those on a whole host of issues. We want different tenants. We don't like the tenants that you're suggesting, or the urbanism, the architecture that you're proposing doesn't fit in with the neighborhood, or we actually think that we could use a different kind of use than what you're proposing. All of those things will definitely be on the table as we continue to get, as we start to get responses back from folks. So I know that was a lot. I know we've covered a lot. We've been at it here for about an hour. We do have 35 more minutes left. And so we want to take the time to open this up for discussion. We know that there might be questions about the corridor manager. I think, as Caroline noted, nothing too much has changed since before. I think it sounds like we've gotten the questions from DK or for DCASE and for the Connected Chicago program, but if there are any others that have surfaced, let us know. Did we get it right with what we heard in July? Is there something we're missing? Is there something that we should be adding to our kind of series of strategies? Are there any questions about the Englewood Square Phase 2 RFP? Again, I know a lot of you on the call were part of the 16th Ward meeting, but for those that weren't, are there any questions? And then, are there any other items? Again, we see the roundtable as an opportunity to focus on Invest Southwest, but we want to make sure we're providing a forum for discussion of other topics, recognizing the breadth of issues and concerns that you all might have, and the fact that this is one of a few opportunities to really have this open discussion. So I'll kind of pause there for myself and open it up to anyone who has a question. Feel free to jump in or raise your hand, and we can get that figured out. And feel free to add anything in the chat as well, and I can kind of relay that to the group and try to answer. I know that was a lot, so I have to imagine there's folks with some questions or things that they'd like to add. Oh, I see Barbara has raised her hand.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, Barbara.
Okay, my name is Barbara, and I live at 65th off of Yale.
Okay.
You're not gonna have any liquor stores. Are we gonna still stay dry over there on 63rd and Holster?
We are not showing any liquor stores in the program, so that's not changing. But thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Luke. How are you? This is Gloria. How are you today? Hi, everybody.
Doing well. Hi, Gloria. How are you?
Good. Just want to know, was any? I know you all are most focused on the 16th Ward, but what is any? Is there any plans for West Englewood?
Great question. Yeah. So at the moment, we don't have a specific initiative in West Englewood, but we are still looking at how best to engage and what the next steps are. And so I think that this roundtable is certainly an opportunity. And if you and I want to do a one-on-one, we can do that as well. But by all means, this is the opportunity as well to share what some of those needs might be. So Invest Southwest, again, focused specifically on 63rd and Halsted, but that doesn't mean that off-corridor solutions and strategies can't be discussed in West Englewood. Is there something particular that you have in mind?
I do. I have a couple of locations in West Englewood that I think that can utilize some investment.
Okay.
But we can talk.
Okay.
We can talk offline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll circle back. We'll find time maybe next week where we can discuss.
Okay, that sounds good.
Great. Thank you, Gloria.
You're welcome.
I see a few questions in the chat. I'll go ahead and raise those. The corridor manager. Yes. So, and I don't know if Caroline's still on, but if I understood correctly as well, with the extension, we gained an applicant, but we also had an applicant withdraw. Is that correct, Caroline?
Almost, yeah. So one of the prior two applicants submitted a revised application.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So
it looks like
yeah.
There's another question that I'll take if that's all right, Luke. The reason for the extension to solicit more applicants. Yes, that was the reason. Englewood was, I think, in good shape compared to some of the other neighborhoods where we only received one application, and just wanted to make sure that it wasn't a failure of us getting the word out and making sure that people really knew about the opportunity. So yeah, that was the reason for the extension. And in this case, it actually allowed one applicant to kind of reconsider and restructure their application, and in the hopes of submitting something stronger.
Can I say something to you, Caroline, regarding that application? I think maybe a lot of people who didn't apply is because they probably didn't understand the language, or it might have been a little bit difficult for them to apply. So I'm glad that you put on an extension, but yet still I have those individuals to probably reach out to you so you can explain it to them.
Sure, yeah, if you want to share my contact information, I'd be happy to speak with them.
Okay.
So is the application closed now?
Yes, it's now closed.
Okay. I'm glancing here at the chat. Were there any other questions not in the chat as I try to review and see what I can pull out here?
Luke, this is Bruce Montgomery.
Hi, Bruce.
It might be helpful moving forward if there could be a place where documents associated with the corridor could be publicly accessible. I don't know what that would look like, but if there could be some kind of place where things like when people just want to have conversations about the corridor, and it could be maps, it could be demographic data, but having some kind of collaborative, maybe a Slack channel or something that could be publicly available, where as documents become available associated with the corridors, different groups that are meeting to discuss potential opportunities could, look at the documents, review those things, and have some centralized place. And then also people who wanted to make contributions to the community document repository could upload pictures and documents, different things like that. So if there could be some thing to continue making community collaboration more transparent by having a place where people that want to see things could go see them and add to them and have a collection of documents. Because like it's been mentioned earlier, Englewood has had the benefit of a number of very smart planning activities over a long period of time, but a lot of folks haven't seen those documents. And if somebody has them or has access to them, it sure would be nice if they could be shared so that everybody could be operating from the same playbook.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And I think,
and let me say this, Luke, this is not meant to be necessarily directed towards any one entity. The city is not responsible for, what we all can do collectively. So many of the organizations that are on the line, they may have a solution for this, and they could easily share this amongst the community members. So I don't want this to appear like the only one who can add value to this process is the city and the planning department. I think there are folks on this call that may have some ideas and resources and should step up to the plate and offer them in a constructive way, just like they have been doing, because there have been, as stated earlier, many existing efforts, and those efforts could continue, and they should be broadened so that they are in fact democratically inclusive of as many folks that want to be heard and make input as possible.
No, that's great. Thank you, Bruce. And yeah, I think we agree. If there already is, again, we know so many of you have been involved in past plans, have your own documents. if a repository like that exists that any of you would be willing to make public, we'd be happy to help coordinate and share that. On the flip side, I think that, Bruce, what you suggest is really something that we could be looking at across these corridors, and that as part of this roundtable, some sort of, as you put it, a repository, a website, some sort of, again, as we move to this more digital form of communication, I think that that's a solid solution across the board. And so we would look for it to be collaborative, for folks to be able to upload their own information. So Jim and I will definitely talk, and we'll speak with our communications folks and see what makes the most sense, what's probably the most reliable and accessible platform for that. But that's a really great thought. And I think, again, the things that we're discussing can live on there as well. So when there's resources that the mayor's office or DCASE or whoever bring to us and we share with you, that can easily be where those things live as well. And so, yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just add, Bruce, to that, and that was an amazing question. We are working on, our public platform, if you will, on our website about Invest South and West, and really trying to get ready to key that up and have it be a more rambunctious platform than it is right now. Our comms team has been working diligently on that very thing, and we are going to have all of our public documents on that platform, as well as maps, and not only just maps, but interactive maps, so people can see, what kind of incentives are layered on the Invest in Southwest corridors and things like that. So we're working on that, but your question is a larger one that I think, as Luke alluded to, we need to be thinking about, to have, a location where, community documents are shared, where anybody can go in and kind of see, what the community had put together previously, and, really get a real good breadth in terms of, what type of economic development has been shared in the past. I think that's a wonderful idea. That's something we certainly are going to look into.
Thank you.
I do see a question on the specific guidelines of the RFP. So those are, again, as we've noted, we're looking for a late August release. We're still crafting those, making sure that what we put in there reflects what we've discussed with all of you, reflects what we've discussed with the 16th Ward Task Force, and reflects what we can kind of legally include. And so we're working with our law department. As you can imagine, there's a lot of sensitivity around certain things. So that's all being finalized as we speak. And we will be continuing to wrap that into the RFP as it's released next week. And so we can work to find ways to get you all that information. But it's largely in line with what we've discussed in the past on these calls. It's looking at mixed-use development along 63rd, a variety of housing types, meaningful open space for gathering, and really celebrating the firehouse as that community hub. So the guidelines of the RFP aren't prescriptive per se in terms of exact building footprints or build-to lines or exact program items. But again, it's a broad menu of those kinds of neighborhood retail and neighborhood service uses that have been discussed, a variety of housing types. Again, what comes in the first phase of that development will be shaped by financial feasibility, but the vision that we expect to see from respondents is one that incorporates a variety of housing styles, a variety of unit sizes, and as we hope, a variety of affordability points as well, knowing that maintaining affordability in the community is critical, and that is paramount to our RFP. And then again, with the firehouse, the things that we've been discussing in terms of a community hub and the open space adjacent to that community hub that is flexible and able to be used both at with the hub and for larger events. And so it's kind of a broad kind of overview of that. Looking in the chat. Any other questions from folks?
Hey, Luke.
Yes,
We
Patrick.
have a final question from Joan from the Alderman Taylor's office regarding the timing of those guidelines, or did you already answer that?
Yeah, so so the guidelines, let's circle back on that. I think that there's a way, we are moving towards the release quickly. We are taking into that what we've discussed with you all in the past, and again, taking that through our law department. And so we feel confident that the menu of both program items and urban design that is reflected in the RFP is, what we could see as reflecting what we've discussed with you all. And so I don't, we don't have currently planned time to review that in any more detail. But again, the monthly sessions that we continue to have once we release the RFP will allow us to add additional information, add additional clarity, and take on additional considerations so that when we see a response, we can take on any comments from you all to assess that response. So we assess it against not only the RFP as it was released, but also against what we hear from you all in the interim, if that makes sense. I think I see Joan has a hand up.
I had a question on the, my name is Joan Forbes and I live in Englewood. I had a question on the RFPs. I know they're focusing on the firehouse and some other lots in the surrounding areas. So the developers who will be submitting these proposals, are they going to be for each individual parcel, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let me see what I have in terms of a map that we can glance at. So at the moment, what you see here, and I know it's a small map, but what's labeled lot 1 and 2, that's the northern end of the site, that is not going to be released at this point in the RFP. It's a city-owned property, but we feel it's probably best held for a later phase of development. The area around the firehouse is considered one site, and the area at 63rd Street and along 63rd Parkway is considered a separate site. And so based on the financial incentives that we have available to us, we think there's only the ability to support one development over the other, whether that be a renovation of the firehouse and additional square footage surrounding it, additional development surrounding it, or new development on the 63rd Street site. And so we're putting both in the RFP to gauge interest and to understand what respondents might be more drawn to. But we really see a developer taking on only one or the other based on our ability to help support that at the city. So what that means is there's an opportunity in the future to revisit whichever site is not ultimately selected. And so what we might come back with in November and December are some responses for the firehouse and some responses for the other site. And what we want to make sure we're doing with you all is deciding which responses really make the most sense, regardless of site. And so maybe the firehouse becomes such a priority that proposal for that site really rises to the top. Maybe the proposal for the 63rd Street site is so strong that it makes more sense as a phase one to you all than the firehouse project. So in a short way to answer your question, there's essentially 3 sites within this larger site, and each of those would be their own development project and would potentially be developed by separate developers, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Well, you know, I know we only have 15 minutes left, but I think it might be helpful, and I think Joan in the chat to your question, and I think because we have some time here, give me a moment. I'd like to pull up an image or two of the RFP, and just kind of indicate to you all where we are with that. So give me 1 second here to pull this up. Okay, apologies. I'm back. So what we are going to be including in the RFP is a series of images that help reflect some potential character of residential uses. And again, these are starting point, and these are not the extent of the images, and we're still working to swap those in and out. But we understand that it will be a variety of residential types, multifamily towards the edges of the corridor, and maybe smaller styles towards the interior of the site. We recognize that affordability is a key consideration. And so one thing that we have recognized in our analysis is that deed-restricted affordable rents, as far as the city is concerned, is what is set up from area median income. Those rents are equivalent to what's being paid in market prices in Englewood. And so what that means is when we talk about affordable units, deed-restricted affordable units, those are often the same rents. You see here the range on the right, the range of rents that can come across from deed-restricted are really equivalent to what's being charged in the market right now, but often for older housing stock. So as we think about affordable units on this site, we recognize that the subsidies that come with those units, that help those units get built, allow for units that are currently in the price range of the Englewood community. And so that's been an important understanding of our analysis. I do just want to touch here on retail and service. Again, not an exhaustive list, but the beginning of a list. And I know we're reaching out to folks to discuss what else might make sense here. And again, it's not the final list, and teams, as they create responses, will really be the ones to help shape this, and we will come back with those responses. So nothing here is written in stone. It's a menu of options. Again, we've talked about the firehouse revitalization, all the different kinds of uses that could come out of that, that we've talked about with folks on this call and elsewhere. The fact that a town square needs to be created and associated with that firehouse. And so what's the character of that? Again, remains to be seen, but we know it needs to be flexible. We know it needs to have a variety of spaces, some paved spaces for events, some more green and open spaces, trees, potentially water features. These are the kinds of things that we've heard from you all and from others that we've talked to as being important to incorporate with the firehouse and making it that community hub. An improved pedestrian realm. So great sidewalks, great streetscapes, pedestrian crossings into and out of the site, seating and other amenities. Open spaces. So we're talking about a variety of open spaces, whether that be passive kind of recreation, whether that be an opportunity potentially for more community garden space, maybe in a showcase setting, or whether that just be planting and open paths. And so that's definitely part of it. And I'll end here to say that this, I think, goes to Joan Forbes' question. Here's how the sites line up. Again, at the moment, Package A is not being released. It was identified early on, and we've realized it makes sense to hold for future development. Package B1 is the firehouse. Package B2 is the adjacent land. And so we're looking for proposals that occur on B1 and potentially expand to B2 if appropriate. And then Package C, which is on 63rd. So that's kind of where we are with the RFP. And again, it's painting a very broad brush. It's this selection of potential uses, ideas about what those uses could look like to give some structure to respondents so that it's not just a completely blank slate for them. But they will take these ideas and they will continue to tweak. They'll continue to add detail. They'll think of things that we couldn't think of. And those will be part of the proposals that we bring back. And so that's kind of what I wanted to go over with that. I hope that kind of clears some things up about some of those uses. But again, it's the kinds of things we've been talking about with you all since earlier in May and June, and that we looked at in the June roundtable and the workshop. So I know we've only got about 5 minutes left. Again, thank you all. I know this has been a long session. I am curious to hear if there's any final questions. Otherwise, I will just kind of throw up a next step slide just so we're all on the same page about where this is headed. Okay, so next steps. Early September, we're looking for the corridor manager to be selected. Mid-September, the artists in residence will be selected from DCASE. And then we'll be back with you all at the end of September for another roundtable. So we'll have updates on a number of the things we've talked about today. And again, based on conversations we have with you all between now and then, there may be items outside of the corridor that come up. There may be things that we currently aren't anticipating that arise to be discussed. So if there are no further questions, thank you everybody for joining us. And of course, I think I put my email in the chat. Jim did the same. By all means, please reach out if there's anything you'd like to discuss one-on-one, and we'll be sure to follow up. But with that, I do want to thank everyone, and I wish everyone a good afternoon. and we'll be back in touch at the end of the next month. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Luke? Luke.
I'm still on. Can I help? Who was that? I didn't see.
This is Joan Forbes. I just want to know if you had a date for the next meeting.
I don't believe a date has been set just yet, Joan.
No.
Yeah, Luke, are you still on?
I'm still on. I'm here.
Oh,
yeah.
good.
No date has been set yet, Joan. But we'll try to schedule that ASAP, and we'll reach out with that.
Okay. How do you send that information out? Via email?
Via email, yeah. And do I have your email?
I don't think you do.
Would you
go ahead,
put it in the chat? You can put it in the chat, and if you'd like, you can send it. I don't know if you're familiar with the Zoom chat, but you can click where it says to everyone, and instead you can just select my name, and you can just send it right to me, if that works.
All right, I'll do that.
Okay, and Joan, if you like, I can take it right now if you like.
Okay, Joan, Joan. 44 at Comcast.net. Nice and simple.
Okay, that is simple. I don't think I've seen an email that simple in quite some time. Joan, Joan 44 at Comcast.com.
No, .net.
.net.
Uh-huh.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
Uh-huh. Bye.
Okay, great. I will go ahead and end the meeting. Thank you.
And we can do a quick call afterwards too, Luke.
Yeah, I'll just give you a call.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hey, you want me in on that call too, Jim?
Sure.
You gonna do a Teams?
Yes. Or well, are we talking about Woodlawn? Or are we talking about Luke? Are we going to be talking about Woodlawn or?
Mostly Woodlawn.
Okay, good. Okay. Patrick, I'm going to circle back with you afterwards, okay?
Okay, no worries. Okay. All right, guys. Good show, Luke. All right.
Thanks.